Should be up. Just gonna make sure before we get started.
Okay.
Over here on the YouTubes.
How's YouTube streaming? I haven't done it in a while.
It's good.
Like setting it up.
Yeah, it's decent. All right, should be good. Welcome, guys. I think I have the pleasure of being the first person to have Ernie on, Earn Collects, and interview him and learn about him. If you are in any Discords, any chats across different live streams and stuff, I'm sure you've seen his username and his profile picture before. Recently, he's gotten into the content creation game himself, so I thought I would have him on and we would chat about vending, Japanese Pokemon market, because we're both really into the Japanese side of things, and then some of where he wants to go with his channel and his content. So, Ernie, if you want to give a little introduction about yourself, take it away.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Java. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Uh, Also, thanks to my wife, and shout out to all the wives out there who let their husbands do stuff. I had to cut the baby's bath time early. Like, hey, I got to do this thing for 2 hours. She's like, okay, cool. I'm like, thank God. Hey guys, my name's Ernie. I go by Earn Collects. I know it's not that original, but for a long time, for my content persona, my content creation name, and my professional name, they were the same thing. So I used to go. I mean, I still go by my real name. My first name and last name is Ernest Lee. I've been around for a long time in this space in YouTube, Twitch land. I was a really early employee at Twitch. I started in 2011. I started this channel in like 2012.
I
And
totally
I
forgot
think
that
when
you
I
worked at
quit,
Twitch. Yeah.
oh yeah, man, I've been around the block. I've seen some I've seen some stuff. Um, I think when I stopped uploading, I had like 60,000 subscribers, and that was in 2012.
Yeah,
So this
so
channel has just been like dormant since then, off and on uploads, but yeah.
yeah. So let's dive a little bit into that. So I looked and your oldest video is I think 14 years ago. And it looks
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
started off a lot with Call of Duty at the beginning, and then you
yeah,
went into
yeah,
doing maybe some more variety stuff, and then maybe 4 years into it, you kind of stopped uploading,
yeah.
and
That's
there was a
about.
long break, and then all of a sudden the Pokemon stuff started about a month ago.
I mean, every upload between before the card stuff and then 2012 is just like random. I played a game here and there and uploaded, but I stopped seriously uploading when I started at Twitch in like 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
And um, well, let me talk about the story of like how I got into content creation, that kind of thing.
One thing
Um,
before you get started, I don't know if you're moving your arm on your desk, but it's making your
Camera
video
wiggle.
really
Sorry,
bumpy. No, you're good.
I'm very fidgety, so thanks for calling that
No, yeah.
out. Where was I? So
Twitch and
yeah,
starting from the beginning.
so back in the day, like this is the first, I would say the first or second wave of gaming content on YouTube. There were a couple of games that really powered what YouTube was then,
Hmm.
Minecraft and then Call of Duty, right?
Yeah.
And when I first started uploading Call of Duty, this is like 2010. I got into it because my brother's friend was like, "Hey, let's play Call of Duty. Let's upload content." My background is not in business. It's not in content. It's not in any of the stuff that I do today. I went to school to study dietetics, which is nutrition exercise science. I got my bachelor's in it. I went to grad school, and throughout that process, I was like playing Call of Duty like 8 hours a day, every single day, and uploading videos.
On top of
Um,
everything else, school and all that stuff
oh
that you were
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
like
Dang.
my
That's
schedule
a
was school, gym, Call of Duty for 8 hours, play games, record, go to bed, and just repeat. Um, and then when I got into grad school, I realized I just really hated our healthcare system
mm,
and how like this is a while back, so it's changed now. Like the way that our healthcare system and um how we treat like what is nutrition to the body it like is one of the least paying careers and professions. It gets pushed to the wayside, and yeah, I was in grad school and I was really just like disheartened with like the whole process,
Yeah.
and I eventually just like walked out and quit because I couldn't handle like, man, I don't think I'm actually gonna be able to do anything with this. And so I quit, and at the same time I was still uploading content on YouTube, and probably about a month and a half after I quit, there was like this small company called Justin TV that was around, which is Twitch, obviously.
You were in at the
And
very, very beginning then.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I was. This is like end of November, I think, in 2011. I had a job offer from YouTube, um, and to be a content partnerships manager back in the day when they didn't really have this.
Hmm.
And then I also had an offer from a friend that I played Call of Duty with who worked at Twitch/Justin TV. Uh, and at that time, man, like looking back, I probably wouldn't have continued to make content because, we were getting paid $2 CPMs on pre-rolls only. Pre-rolls only, $2 CPMs. So if
So,
you upload a video, like didn't matter how long, how short,
yeah.
$2 only on the first view, first ad view that people actually like saw.
I was going to ask if you were making, growing on YouTube, if you were making any sort of money at that time, like if you were monetized or how that worked that long ago.
Uh, there's monetization options. There's no like subscriptions. There's no donations or tips.
Hmm.
There's no like mid roll or post roll. It was $2 pre roll, and I think the most I ever made was like a couple $100 check. Twitch though, I streamed every day on top of recording, and they had a similar setup, like pre rolls primarily. Um, but I was making good money because they had like brand integrations. And this is like, hey, just play this game from this developer
Mm.
early,
Yeah.
and you'll get paid a check. So I streamed on Twitch for however long, alongside uploading to YouTube. And when Twitch started taking off, that's when they started hiring people in the community. Because keep in mind, like back then, dude, where would you go to find anyone who understood about streaming and like games? Like, it just didn't really exist.
It's mostly
So
just
you
like
had to like,
written guides and walkthroughs and maybe some YouTube videos, but there
yeah,
wasn't like that live interaction happening at that time.
yeah, and so it was slim pickings. You couldn't really just like, there weren't like hundreds of people to interview, and I just got really lucky, and I think professionally, like I'm fairly well put together. I can talk the talk. Like I
Yeah.
went to school. Like I had enough, I guess, like professionalism and charisma to like apply. I met Justin from Justin TV, went through the interview process. Emmett, the former CEO, Kevin, he's a former COO, and like I was able to land the job just because like I had some pretty good chops to me. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. Like playing games, dropping out of school, and the funny thing about the school part is I didn't even tell my parents what happened until like 3 or 4 years later after Twitch got acquired because
Yeah.
I was so like scared and embarrassed
Oh
to like
yeah.
tell
Yeah.
them, and they wouldn't understand that like I'm working for a company that's involved with games that's not a game company.
Yeah.
Like they just wouldn't get it, right?
No, I mean back then,
Yeah,
like watching somebody and paying them to play a game that you could be playing yourself, like it's even still a weird concept to a lot of people. But
yeah,
back then, I can't imagine it was probably way worse in terms of like people understanding it. One selfish question I
yeah,
have for myself: were you working at Twitch when the Pokemon, the Twitch plays Pokemon was happening, or was that
yeah, yeah,
after? Oh yeah, you
yeah.
were. Was that like a big thing in the office like
Dude,
that?
it was. Sorry, I'm trying not to swear because I like to swear
Hey, you're good. You can
just
swear. I don't care.
constantly. It was like a cult following. It was like, I don't know how to explain it. Like everyone was talking about it, and not just that. Like merch was being made with like puns and innuendos, and like I don't remember a lot of what was what it is now, but like
Yeah.
people would go to like PAX conventions and they'd say stuff like "Praise Helix," and everyone would be like, "Yeah," and they would cheer. And like the Praise Helix is related to like, I think throughout the game when they
It's like
get
which
in Pokemon Blue,
fossil
they get the
they
Helix
chose or something.
fossil,
Yeah.
and then like I don't remember what happens, but like it was a movement,
Yeah.
and yeah, man, it was crazy times when that was up.
So during this entire process of creating content and everything, where did Pokemon fall into it? Like, did you collect cards as a kid? Did you get into it kind of during the boom with a lot of other people, including myself? Where did that kind of fall? How did you get into the Pokemon card or Pokemon games, Pokemon cards? Where did Pokemon fall into that?
So I originally uploaded some content from Pokemon, the online game client. This is like the old client, which is not very good. I have a video on my channel somewhere of me opening up a box of Plasma Storm. I had
Mm.
no idea what I was doing, by the way, and I pulled a Trubbish, and I'm just like, is this really the direction that we're going, guys? Like, this is
That's the
a
same
bag
reaction I
of
had.
garbage. Yeah, it's a bag of garbage.
Yeah.
But before then, I think growing up, my oldest brother was really big into computers, and we played Pocket Monsters Green on an emulator on like this, our computer back then. And this is before or around when Pokemon Blue came out in the US. So we were playing this like half translated version of Pokemon Green, which in Japan they had Pokemon Green and Blue, I think, or Green and Red.
Green or
And
red,
here we
yeah.
had Blue and Red. And I was hooked. And then we got it for Game Boy, and I leveled the Blastoise to 100 level 100 by hand, which is not
Forever.
worth it. You get
Yeah.
nothing for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And it takes like 3 Elite Four trips to get like one level in the 90s or something like that. So I played the game growing up. The cartoon comes out. Watched the cartoon as much as I could. And then the card game, I would say I played the card game fairly heavily for a couple of years. Um, Played in a handful of tournaments. Um, and that was before Rocket came out. So
Okay,
I
so you were
got in probably
actually
around base fossil jungle,
you were
and then
actually
I didn't stay through.
competitively playing at the time, like actually playing in tournaments. Well,
I
local
mean,
stuff.
relatively speaking, yeah. My best moment was I got first in the jungle pre-release tournament, and I pulled back-to-back first edition Hollow Flareons in like 11 packs, which I was thrilled. And then I sold them all for like $30.
Of course.
Not, yeah. I was
Yeah.
a dumb kid. But yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to it, playing growing up. And then my family, we weren't poor, but we were like lower middle class, a lot of debt, and we didn't really have like any money for anything. And
Hmm.
so I never really got the experience of like opening up packs and like, hey, can I pull a Charizard? I always saw people, do that, but I guess that's the part for me that I held on to growing up, is like I wish I would have had money and the ability to go out and just buy packs and rip them, or like booster boxes. So going back to your question, when did I get in? I would say seriously, beginning of 2020. I would say middle of 2020,
Okay.
right when a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think when Champions Path came out, the ETB, I think that's
Yeah.
2020. I saw like a video of it, probably like Twice Baked Jake or something like that, and I was like, dude, this ETB looks awesome. Like I need this. I need this thing. Went to Targets in the Bay Area. Went to Targets in Oregon, where I'm from, when I visited my parents. You couldn't find anything, and so
No.
like
Yeah.
for me, I like had this like genuine curiosity around like, well, why is it this way? Like, why are so many people excited about Pokemon again? And then I just went down the rabbit hole of like spending an
Biz.
ungodly amount of money buying
Yeah.
buying stuff online and ripping packs of Darkness Ablaze and cases of Sword and Shield and Vivid Voltage, and um, that's how I got back in. Really, is 2020.
Yeah.
Bought a lot, ripped a lot. Thankfully, though, I also bought a lot that I didn't even touch. I never really got around to it, and I think that was um, that's what's really fueled like my business as of today. Like I don't put any personal money into this anymore because of all the stuff I bought back then,
Yeah.
and like have resold and flipped and that kind of thing.
Cool. And how long did it take you to go from English to starting to take a liking to like the Japanese product, which I feel like the majority of what you do right now is Japanese. You can correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong. Um,
I'm like 95% Japanese now, and that 5% really is just buying like the random ETB or booster box to rip.
hmm,
Uh, Minus slabs. Like I'll buy English slabs, but not slabs I really want to keep. They're slabs to flip or trade, or they're like alt arts that I know are going to be worth something.
yeah,
Um, it took me probably after the first year when I started ripping Sword and Shield. So Sword and Shield print quality is like not bad. Sun and Moon and XY is like not as good. And
yeah,
so as I was ripping this stuff in English, I started to realize like, oh, you probably don't want to rip a box of Burning Shadows because half the cards are going to be like
right,
damaged or lightly played. And so going through that process and ripping those sets, I started to look at Japanese. And back then, like it was available. You could buy decent quantities of it. I don't think you could buy cases of a lot of the Japanese sets, but you could look online and buy it at like
yeah,
random sites and eBay and stuff. And I started ripping some, and the first thing you notice with Japanese is the print quality is just like
way better.
on a whole nother level.
Yeah,
Um, and I think for me, I just kind of saw like a light bulb went off. Like, if I'm going to invest money, sorry, I shouldn't use the word invest. If I'm going to spend money and buy something that I want to appreciate and value or trade, and I like kind of saw what is this going to be like years from now?
yeah,
Then I probably want to buy the stuff that's like super cheap and has comparable demand and really good quality, and that's kind of how I ended up with Japanese.
yeah.
Um,
That makes sense.
I remember the Pocket Monster cards as a kid and being intrigued, like, hey, what's the Pocket Monster thing? And then flipping the card over and you're like, what the hell is this? Like it's a Japanese card. So I've always been intrigued by that, but it was really through like the ripping experience that I realized like, dude, Japanese cards are way better.
Yeah.
Even though I can't read them.
So, so at some point, this started to become, should we call it a side hustle, a business, a hobby? How would you describe it right now in terms of where you're at? Because obviously you collect. You've got a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff behind you, sealed and slabs
Yeah.
and games and all sorts of things. But at the same time, I know that you're hustling on Instagram, selling stuff. You're going to shows now, selling stuff. So there's definitely a business aspect to it. So where would you say your hobby side business thing is at the moment?
It was purely an adult man child trying to enjoy a part of his childhood that he didn't get for a long time. And by
Yeah,
that I mean like Hills Wholesale Gaming.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm like within the top 10 people who give them money. Like I spent so much money at that company with that company, even though the website's terrible.
oh yeah,
But I just bought it because like it's the hobby, like this is awesome and I want to like enjoy this stuff. Um it was like that for probably the first 2 years. And then the last three, so probably the last three, I was like, I probably need to stop spending money because, I work at a startup. I, uh, I don't have infinite personal money to spend. My wife and I were talking about having a baby and like, we want to get a house and like all these things
yeah,
started to actually be real, right? Um, that's when I started to like resell the stuff that I don't care about, or I would buy like 20 copies of like a full art and like grade them and sell a bunch just to pay off, uh, what I bought and then have like five for free. And so that's really when I started selling. I started committing to selling hardcore probably March of last year after watching, the OG Pokemon Stevens videos. I was
mm,
like, all right, I got to do this because if I just put in the work, this will all realize itself and I will not have to pay for anything. And I would say that's really when I started to kick it off is March of last year.
okay, nice.
Yeah.
You definitely, I mean, I see the stuff you're selling. I see the stuff you're picking up. Uh, we chat back and forth in DMs. You definitely are doing very well. or at least that's what it seems.
I
Definitely
go
have,
very like deep into hobbies and like interests.
yeah,
So although I might have cool stuff, it doesn't mean I'm the most responsible or I know what I'm doing
right,
at the time.
right, true. You might be holding on to something that could make your business a lot more profitable, like Poncho Pikachu's or something.
Yeah, I just sold to Dan a bunch of Sun and Moon booster boxes because I purchased cases of them before, and it took me a long time after staring at them. Like, why do I want five of these?
Right, yeah.
What does it do for me at this point?
You
And
buy so much
also,
more
I want
cool
these other.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like I gotta buy 151. I gotta buy all this other stuff that's coming out. Like, how do
Yeah.
I how do I fund that? So, the cool thing about selling though, once you start to sell that stuff, like typically you'll just forget about ever having it. So,
Yeah.
it kind of works itself out.
Yeah. No, true. And it, frees up the cash to buy a whole bunch of awesome more stuff. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so let's talk about Japanese Pokemon cards. You and I are both heavily into like the Japanese Pokemon card market. We both buy and grade and sell and kind of target that specific side of the specific language because of all the reasons that you said before. Better print quality, usually better textures. They tend to grade better, I would say overall. Um,
Yeah.
the kind of it's a little easier. Acquiring it is a
Agree.
little more difficult, but the grading and the selling and stuff is maybe a little bit easier to get those higher grades and potential profit margins. Maybe not right now because right now it's pretty iffy. But let's talk about the market quick. So you do a lot more in Japanese sealed than I do. I've just recently started picking up a case here and there of a set that I feel like is really cheap. And right now,
Yeah.
as we can see, the prices on modern sealed are, I don't know if they've stopped coming down or not. Shiny Treasure EX is almost in the 20s now. I think I bought a case at like 31 a piece, which is insane for a specialty set.
Yeah.
Lots of other sets in the 30s.
So just to clarify, I don't most of the stuff I sell is like singles and slabs.
Hmm.
Have sold some Japanese sealed, but Japanese sealed right now is like probably the worst thing that you could choose to sell casually or like unless you have like Pokeani does a really good job of like being upfront. Like he buys a high quantity to get
Right.
as best price he can. You can't just like buy a case and hope to flip a case. Like I mean, you could, but time, effort, energy, it's not worth it.
No, yeah.
So I
Flipping,
don't flip a lot of sealed
yeah.
stuff.
Flipping sealed is definitely not the play right now, especially with
Yeah.
prices continuing to do whatever they're doing. What do you think is happening there? Like, why is everything getting so cheap? Do you think it's less people interested? You think we're siphoning off some interest right now, or are they just printing like a metric shitload right now in Japan? And
Yeah.
uh, what is your like best guess? Obviously we don't know. We don't have a line into Japanese Pokemon, company, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
Can I tell you just a random
Yeah.
thought slash story? One of my one of my guilty pleasures. There's a Pokemon Facebook Japanese sealed group.
Hmm.
There's many of them, but there's one that's ran by this guy named Masamitsu Goto. It's like one of the main sealed groups. And on occasion, because you know how Japanese sellers like will not tell you what the price is up front. Have you had
Like
that?
what they pay for it?
No, like if you go to these Facebook groups, which are
Um.
very prominent now, they don't post public pricing typically, or they
Okay.
haven't typically. And part of that's because they want a real customer to engage with them so they can give them a real time price instead of like telling everyone what the price is because um they don't have the ability to sell all their inventory at one price. They want to be able to fluctuate based on like who's buying
Yeah,
who's
that makes
who's
sense.
not. So one of my guilty pleasures is if you go to those pages and you see one of the sellers sell something, you'll have like the version of the uh I call it like a Japanese sealed Karen. Someone in the United States will post and say, I don't get why you can't just tell us the price. This is not fair. Like, why can't you just tell us the price? And every time I see one of those posts, I just die inside of laughter because it's just so funny.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I think we're very privileged in that we have all the data points we need. We can talk to distributor or people who talk to distributors here, LGSs and whatever. Like there's so much information here that we have access to. It's just funny that there are people here with the same mindset when they think about Japan, which is not our market,
No.
not
Yeah.
our product, and they expect the same level of like service and like hand holding and
And
like
transparency and all that.
like this
Like,
guy's not
yeah.
Target, man. Like this is a guy who's trying to flip and make money.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's like totally random, but
No, yeah.
I
Now
think
that you
that's so
say
cool.
that,
It's funny.
the guy that I buy from, everything's through email, and I just email him, and then he gives me
Yeah.
like a list of prices for the day or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, and then it's constantly changing. I'll check like a week later, stuff's gone up, stuff's gone down. Um, yeah, that
It's
because
the
if they
nature of
quote
the
a
game.
price, if you quote a price publicly on a Facebook page, then you're gonna have a bunch of people saying, "Well, it was 35 a week ago. Why can't I have the price you quoted?" Like all that stuff.
Because your dumbass didn't buy it. That's why I can't give you
Exactly,
that
exactly.
price.
And now it's 45,
Sorry.
and yeah,
I promise I'm not a heartless, mean person. It's just like really funny to me that
there's
like
yeah,
people need to put their money where their mouth is and you'll get what you want. But if you're always kind of like on the line and not willing to commit, that's what you get dealt, right?
yeah,
Anyway, you're saying like what's going on with the Japanese market?
yeah. What do you think? Are they just
I'll just
printing a
start and say
lot?
like no, nobody freaking knows. Anyone who says they knows has no idea. I'm
Yeah,
like unless Mr. John Pokemon San, whoever's leading that thing tells us what's going on. Or there's distributors who for some reason they want to tell us whatever the quantity is that they're selling or distributing or that kind of thing. Like everyone's guessing, right?
yeah,
I think though you can kind of correlate what's happened in the past and like what you're seeing from seller to seller, like in different platforms. Like you can assume what's going on. I think there's a lot of it printed, and that's cool. That's awesome. That's great for now and people who want to
yeah.
collect, people
Super
who want to
accessible.
rip.
Yeah,
Like I would be having a field day, and I'll tell you why I'm not. Um, it is a great time to buy Japanese sealed. There's just so much of it. The access level is like unprecedented. And
yeah,
I'm not over exaggerating. Like before, you would Google Pokemon Japanese booster box and hopefully find a site. Back then, it was like Plaza Japan, Nin Game, random site, Okini Land.
yeah,
These sites still exist. Like you could do that then, and there weren't that many options. Now, like I can go to TikTok and buy a $30 box of shiny treasure. And I think what I think is going on as part of this and why I'm a little weary, why do English sellers have access to all this product? That's the part that's like, yo, what's going on here? Because I followed a lot of the sealed releases going back to Matchless Fighters slash Battle Styles.
mhm,
And, I'd buy from one or two different sources. And like this is not like me saying this is what was going on in the market. This is what I experienced, right? And they would tell me the price at release, and then they would tell me the price 2 weeks after release, and they also tell me like what quantity I could order before and what quantity I could order after. And I wasn't buying like cases and cases, but I would buy anywhere between like 2 and 20 boxes to rip and also just to keep. Every set that would happen. Every set that would happen. And then comes Lost Abyss. I think Lost Abyss was the first kind of like, what is going on here? Price spiked, the quantities I could get lowered from both two or three of the people I talked to. I'm like, okay, that probably means because demand's up. That makes sense. Incandescent Arcana comes out, which the only card in that set, by the way, is Serena.
yeah,
That's worth pulling. And right now she's like $120 in a PSA 10. She was like 300 or 400 bucks at release
yeah,
for a PSA 10 or for several months. Same thing with that set. Okay, limited quantity. It's like $80, $100 a box right out the gate. That's kind of weird. Paradigm Trigger comes out, has a Lugia in it, has Candace, but she's like mid tier, not even mid tier, and has those are really the big pulls.
Yeah.
And Paradigm Trigger, I really wanted. And I think out of the gate, it was like 65, 70. It was high, like still a little high. So I walk away from that experience like, okay, I guess demand's picking up. They're not reprinting. This is good for people who are holding. It's good for people like me who have some. Um, cool, that's what's going on. Several months go by, and then we fast forward to when TikTok started selling product. And the thing that I realized about the Japanese market is how is it that these US based sellers, and there's like 3 or 4 big TikTok shops. I won't name the names, but if you shop on TikTok, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They are Cali based or Texas based, and they're like, I don't know if they're LGSs, but they're like content companies, and they sell booster boxes. Some of these guys have access to thousands of boxes of Paradigm Trigger in their like recent solds. And so I'm trying to like understand at release, it was really hard to get this box at like a decent price. Fast forward to a TikTok shop, these guys have thousands of boxes at a price that's about the same price, if not cheaper. And that's when I realized, like, hey, dude, this whole Japanese market, what people have access to, this is an unfair game. What's happening is like a lot of the inventory, it's not distributed evenly. And it likely comes from the same, um, I guess, key stakeholders in Japan, and they're just selling it to different people, in Japan and then across the US.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that people don't realize is Japanese is highly manipulated. The market.
Oh
It's
yeah. I
manipulated by
mean,
LGSs,
the buy lists were insane for some of
buy
those
lists.
cards, and they were absolutely not buying those cards for those insane like prices that they
Dude,
were putting on.
well, they might have purchased a few, but they were willing to keep up a lot of those buy prices for like weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So, I've been to Japan 4 times. Twice I went to look at cards. Like you go into the stores and like some of the buy prices are legit. Do they keep them up and actually buy in mass quantities? Like no one really knows, right?
Yeah.
But the signal for a lot of people is to look at Dragon Star and Magipoki, and there's a few other card shops, and they say, oh, if those guys are paying 100, then my box must be worth 130.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works. Like it would be the same thing in the US if the LGS is banded together and say like, "Hey, we're going to pay $150 for that 151 Charizard." Nobody posts less than that. Everyone would think the card is worth like $200,
Yeah.
right?
Because surprisingly,
So,
like there are a lot of card stores, but they're all like I'm sure you know. If you go to a
yeah.
particular part of Japan, like you can go to Shibuya, all the card stores are on one block. You go to, the different parts of Japan, Akihabara, all in like a half block radius of each other. Like
Yeah.
they're all really, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of manipulation happening. They're all right next to each other. They're all probably talking to each other. They're all probably putting out buy lists together and doing all. It wouldn't surprise me. Not that it for sure happens and it's all malicious, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was some communication happening there between stores.
Whether or not they're like colluding or not, I think the larger point for people to realize is we are playing their game, right?
Yeah.
And what they decide to do in their market affects us. What we decide to do here doesn't affect them. Like it doesn't go both ways, right? And it's
Right.
not it's not a fair game. So if you play around with Japanese supply and you have access to this stuff, like it's not the same situation as an LGS here having access to a distributor like Central Hobby or whatever and buying product from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just like an overarching thing to keep in mind. It's not a fair game. Everything's manipulated. And I do think there's a lot of product that's in circulation now. I also think there's a lot more people buying who are not buying for the intent of collecting or ripping.
Right. For sure.
And part of that, and I look at this probably once a week. Mhm. If you just look at like the PSA 10 prices for cards in a lot of the recent sets for Japanese, for example, the 151 Charizard has not changed in price since this
Yeah.
reprint
Not really.
announcement.
It's like 160, 165, 170. It's like
No, it's
right.
like 125. 130 on Sneaker Dunk and Mercari, if
On a
not
10?
cheaper. Yeah, and 10.
Is that
And
it? Oh, Japan?
yeah, and
Okay.
recent solds and quantity of sold. So like something's off in that you would expect if people really wanted a lot of these modern Japanese sets, yes, sealed sales should go up, but singles and graded you would expect to also go up or correlate strongly up as well. And it's not really what I've been seeing.
Well, wouldn't you expect them to go down because there would be more of a supply hitting the market of the sealeds or of the singles like being
It,
ripped?
yes, but also for like the top hits typically are not going to take a dip.
Yeah.
Like the Lugia V, like Lugia V for whatever reason still, you know, I've been buying some of them. They were like 250 to 310 bucks still.
Yeah.
And Paradigm Trigger as a booster box selling for like 60 bucks, 65 bucks on certain websites. Um, the booster box sales for Paradigm Trigger on eBay don't even don't even go. I was looking at Terapeak earlier. You can go to like page 5 or 6, and Paradigm Trigger doesn't even show up for like what people have purchased.
Do you think, kind of somewhat off topic, not really, but do you think that interest in these sets is waning right now because we've had lackluster set after lackluster set after lackluster set after because really for Scarlet and Violet, maybe I'm pessimistic about this. I would say we've had like one really good set, one okay set, and then a bunch of like meh sets. And we haven't seen like that. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, the second half of Scarlet and Violet's gonna be a banger," and it's like, where is it? Mask of Change doesn't look like it's gonna start the bangers. Um,
Haldea
and
Val is pretty good, right?
okay,
I like Haldea.
I
I mean,
mean, it's got
honestly,
the
I've only
Magikarp.
purchased Haldea Evolved because I own a Magikarp in it, and they're just like taking off.
Yeah.
So, I, so sorry. What was your question? Do I think that
Do you think the
sales have
interest
been
right
waning?
now is waning, and the that with the injection of all this more product into the market, do you think the combination of that is forcing prices down currently for certain sets?
I think no. I think it's actually more related to there just being a lot of it, and demand can't keep up with the amount of supply, so everyone is just undercutting each other. I mean, sorry. There's probably some lack of interest in some of these sets, right? Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's more so related to there's way more access to supply. There's way more supply out there. Like Shiny Treasure being 28 bucks or whatever. That's like really good if you want to buy 4 years ago when it was a different climate. Like, it was a different what was going on in the space. Now it's like, do you really want a $30 box of something everyone has? It's getting cheaper and you can't figure out like how much of it actually exists like
Well,
in circulation.
I think that some people would
So
say they would
time and
look
blah blah
at
blah.
the other specialty sets, and
Yeah.
VMAX Climax was heavily printed, V Star Universe was heavily printed, and they're
Yes.
over $100 and sixty
Oh, they were.
dollars a
Yeah.
box or whatever, and it's like okay,
It is a fair comparison, but the thing that is different from every single one of those boxes is the time variable that it takes to appreciate. And when VMAX Climax was out, I can tell you because I was there, it's nothing like how what we're going through with Shiny Treasure today, in terms of who's selling it, the where you can get it, and the price. It never went down to $28 a box. I think it was at like retail, maybe a little bit less.
yeah,
Like people can't get rid of Shiny Treasure. It's just everywhere. So yes, those points are true. However, the time variable that's part of that equation, it's a very relative variable based on like between now and then when we think it's going to double and triple. Because I'm pretty sure that time frame is not going to be the same for Shiny Treasure as is those sets.
you think it'll
Shiny
take
Star V, by the
longer
way,
because there's
nobody
more of it?
wants.
Yeah,
Yeah, Shiny Star V, by the way, is like is like at $60 or $70 a box. No one wants it because no one's paying the waifu premium anymore. So R.A.P. Marnie. Um, and Shiny Fates in English just kind of did what meh. So
yeah,
that's the one too. Like people will call out VMAX Climax, and they'll call out V Star Universe, which V Star Universe is like 50s now,
yeah,
low
yeah.
60s. But they won't call out like Shiny Star V, which has been out for almost 4 years. it was 150 a box, but now it's like less than some of them. So I think people like to conveniently point at like, well, like remember then, like how much supply and like it's gonna go up, guys. You have to look at like what's going on now. You can't look at what's going on then and use that for justification of what you want to do now, like solely. Like you got to be really careful drawing comparisons there because the
I
time
don't
to
know
sell
if
was
you
then.
heard Ernie, but modern sealed always goes up. I don't know if you.
I-
I don't know
English on the sealed always goes up.
if
That is very true.
you-
Japanese sealed does go up. However, if you look at the demand for older sets and how many boxes sell,
yeah.
it's not like Evolving Skies. Like, oh, there's hundreds of boxes of like Sword and Shield based Japanese that are selling. You'll see like one sell in like a quarter in like 3 months.
Well, I
It's
think it's
not the same.
difficult like when you can buy literally the biggest hit for at or less than what the box is worth. It's like why would you buy a box then? Like if I can buy a Charizard shiny
Yeah.
VMAX for $40 like I did today.
You're
um
buying for $40?
yeah, there's a nice little
Oh, I'm
coupon on Buy E right now.
Is it coupon value right now?
Out for me there was, yeah. But um
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
I bought a few in the 40s today, and it's like if that box is literally 60 some dollars right now or $70, why would I buy the box if I can buy two of the big hit Charizards for the same amount of money?
so are you familiar with black and white English?
Not really. I wasn't. Yeah.
This will probably help paint a picture for you. 99% of the cards in black and white English are are worth like a few dollars.
Well,
No one wants.
that's because nobody was like in the hobby during black and white. Like it was a much less
Sure.
popular
That
phase, and so
that
they
may be
printed a
one of
lot
the
less,
reasons,
right?
right? But what I'm pointing to is that like sealed goes up for the novelty of like a sealed product that is in low circulation. The more that's opened, there's less available, right? Like it will always go down. And so there are booster boxes of black and white sets, like Noble Victories is like kind of a meme, Merging Powers. They go for like one, two, and $3,000. The highest cards in those sets in a PSA 10 go for like a few hundred, if that.
Yeah.
So there's like that's like one example of there's a premium. Sorry, I shouldn't say it's always or anything like that. People are willing to pay a premium on older stuff that when you don't open it, the novelty of it being like a sealed booster box,
Yeah.
that's just gonna go up over time because there's just less of it. It the PSA 10 price and like the top hit doesn't always have to go up with or it doesn't have to like be related to in any way to the price of the sealed product, sealed box.
Yeah, that's so weird to me though, especially with the stuff that's printed so much. Like with Evolving Skies, for
Yeah.
instance, it's like I understand if you want to buy like an Evolving Skies booster box to have in your booster box like collection, but
Yeah.
if you buy that to rip right now, in my opinion, you're an idiot. Like you can buy an
You
Umbreon
were also
VMAX
an
for the
idiot then, by
same
the way.
price. Like you're opening it for a card that you can literally buy for the same price you're buying the box for. Like it
You're
doesn't
also
make any
an idiot
sense.
then for ripping Evolving Skies. It is seriously the most overrated ripping experience that exists. You're probably gonna get a non-hollow Ampharos card like I do every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a long history with Evolving Skies. In I did eventually pull the Umbreon, but it's because I was like I gotta support my friend who's a breaker, and just through the pull gods, they rewarded me for supporting one of my friends,
Well,
and
see, now
I
that
got to do
makes
that.
sense though, because you're probably getting the pack for $10, $15.
No, I bought a box. I bought the whole
Oh,
box
you
to
bought the
support him.
box. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha,
he
gotcha.
ripped it on
Yeah.
stream. So
Well, at least you got the card. You got the
yeah,
card everyone wanted.
yeah.
Um,
So do you ever dabble in sorry back then with like English Sword and Shield boxes and sealed?
I didn't hold any sealed or sell any sealed. I always ripped. Whenever I had a English box, I ripped it. I was ripping like $200 Vivid Voltage booster boxes.
Yeah,
It was stupid. It was very stupid.
I think after the first or second case, I probably should have just bought that stupid. I mean, I have
The
it somewhere over
Chunkachu.
here. Eventually bought it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
should have just bought that damn thing. Vivid Voltage was the first set I would say that I was so pumped for. I pre-ordered it. I got cases. I ripped it all, and then afterwards, I just started crying. Like, what am I? What is this? How it's supposed to feel?
Yeah.
Didn't even get the chunky boy.
Yeah, I did not think like, oh, 200 packs. Of course I'm gonna pull the Chunkachu, and then it's like, oh no, I didn't.
It's
Oh man, and then you start to realize how hard to pull some of these cards are, and how rare they actually might be, and stuff like that. But
could I just say though, why don't people like Battle Styles? Battle Styles was a great set when it came out. It had
uh,
the two full arts, the Sleepy T-Tar, and then all of a sudden, like people started hating it. I don't understand the Battle Styles shame. Like it's a
I think
great. I also hold two cases, so you know.
I think the difficult thing with Battle Styles was Urshifu came out in a DLC, and he was kind of like the flagship Pokemon for that set.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think it was
yeah.
difficult if you didn't play the DLC. You had no connection to Urshifu at all. You had no idea who that Pokemon was. Just kind of showed up on the cards. The cards were cool,
That's fair.
but maybe less of a connection there. But everyone loved the T-Tar. The T-Tar was like all over the
Yeah.
place. Um, so, have you seen? This is something that I saw when I was looking today that I thought was interesting. Is that even eh, a lot of the modern singles? So typically, I'm not buying modern, especially right now if I don't have a coupon, because there is like right now modern singles, maybe not across the board, but they're coming down, and the I like buying them on a coupon because it gives me a little more wiggle room. Because if it is going to come
Yeah.
down, 20% or whatever, then I have a little bit more space for what I think my expected like profit margin should be. Um, so that's what I'm doing right now. But it's interesting to see. So I was buying a lot of those 25th Charizards, obviously the Japanese ones,
Yeah.
and then
Dude, by the way, come on, man.
and
Taking into
so
my business.
And so some of those didn't work out for me though. I lost money on some of those because I bought them at 130, 140, and
Oof.
they came down in PSA 10 to like that 180 mark. You couldn't put them through the vault anymore, so you were kind of taking a hit on them. And but one thing that I have found to be interesting is as time has continued, the cards that I bought before at a particular price have come down, but the PSA 10 price has kind of equally come down. It's not coming down at like a faster or slower pace. It's kind of coming down at the same pace. So you have like this weird window where you got to get the card in, you got to send it off, you got to sell it before it comes down enough that your profit margin disappears. But it seems like at least those though that profit percentage is kind of staying similar, even though it's kind of decreasing as the cards and the graded version decreases. Have you seen that too?
With like that card or just generally?
Just in general with modern stuff that comes out, Sword and
Yeah.
Shield like hit cards, stuff like that.
I think part of it's like shouldn't be a secret. It's really easy to flip Japanese PSA 10 guys. Like
Well,
more
and
people are getting into it, and I think there's just more of it being done, and so that's just causing that uniform decrease in price.
and I think the nines are definitely like if you get a nine, you're
There
losing
you
money or
go.
breaking even. Basically,
So
you're
sad.
lucky if you break even. um,
Yeah.
but but the tens like I don't know why, but they're pretty easy to get with Japanese, and they're still holding like a similar percentage premium, even with the cards coming down in price, which is good. But if you're holding
You're
cards for too
sourcing from
long, then
Japan directly, so you're paying Japan prices and then flipping it on eBay and stuff, right?
and grading it and flipping it, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I just looked up on Sneaker Dunk. You can get one of those in a 10, that Zara the 25th for like 125, $130.
That's a weird thing too. I want to ask you about. So if you've been on Bai in the last
Yeah.
6 months, there has definitely been a massive influx of PSA cards on Bai.
Uh-huh.
Whenever I look now, it's like half the
Yeah.
listings are
Yeah.
PSA 10s. It's
They opened
crazy
up
to
PSA
me.
in Japan.
Yeah, but it's crazy to me to see the difference between what's selling in PSA 10 on eBay in the US and what's it's selling because I saw those too. I bought some of those. They were like the 25th anniversary Zard in a 10 was like 190 and 20% off coupon, and then I'd send them to the vault for 250, and it was a easy like 50, 60, $70 right there.
Yeah.
because it's that arbitrage. They're selling way less in Japan for PSA 10s than they are on eBay. It's super weird. And I know Ibex. Uh, I feel our moments with Nick in the chat. I feel like we talked about it once, and he wasn't sure if they don't like the grading standards of PSA, if they're not harsh enough for them. But then if you look at what is it, ARS over there, like they don't take into
The
account
ARS
centering
is
at all.
awesome. I
Um,
mean, just like the slabs look awesome.
the
Like you have
slabs
a
are very
centering
cool,
device,
yeah.
but and they
Um,
give you like the certificate, like it's like a crowned
yeah,
like champion horse. Like
it
this is
looks
how
like a
cool the
cool
card. Yeah.
trophy basically with
I mean,
the
I I think it's like as simple as like they cannot absorb the amount of inventory that exists, and so it's not. I don't think like when I hear stuff like they don't like PSA or like Japanese think this, like one, no one really knows. Two, I just think of it as like a simple, very simple formula. If the demand for these things is not higher or meets the amount of inventory, price goes down. And so you can interpret whatever about, you know, what that means about the prices, but that's just like how economics for this stuff works. And I don't think it's they don't like this stuff. I just don't think there's enough buyers for that stuff in market to justify, that price going up over time. And I
yeah.
think that really depends on which card you're talking about. Because if you look at, I tracked the Giratina V. So here's a secret. I flipped Giratina Vs from Lost Abyss. Been doing it for a while. Really easy to buy. And anyway, I tracked
Giratina
them the
V.
price for a long time.
Oh, the Conda,
Yeah,
the the secret
yes,
rare.
like centipede
Yeah, yeah,
artwork thing everyone likes. I
yeah.
don't think it's anyway. Um, I've been tracking the price for a long time, and it's held pretty steady. It started to dip a bit, but that's the local in market price, and I think it's dipping. Well, sorry, the Japanese yen is not doing well,
No,
but I
yeah.
don't think it's because they don't like the card. It's like it's an expensive card, and they can't absorb what the price is, and um, less of it gets sold and that kind of thing.
So it's probably a mixture of a lot of graded cards hitting a market that's maybe as uh not maybe accepting or not as used to collecting like a graded like because I don't ARS
Yeah,
is pretty
I don't know about
new.
that.
Like
I
graded,
mean, that'd be true, but
like how new are graded cards to that market versus the 20 years that they've been in America, you know? So
it's newer. PSA, it's newer, but I also like don't. I believe some of that stuff, but I try not to like think it's true because at the end of the day, like we're just guessing,
it's speculation, yeah,
and
for sure.
all we can look at is like, are they buying? Are they not? And what is the price?
Yeah.
And then what we do, you and me and other people, arbitrage against eBay, Facebook groups, and we can talk about vending, which is
Oh, we will,
freaking
yeah.
great, and just whatever that difference is, you sell it for. So I don't know, man. Like I think people look way into this stuff and they assume all these things, but all you gotta do, and Mercari, by the way, makes it really easy. Go to the very bottom. You don't even have to translate. At this point, I have to translate. I personally don't have to translate any of the things. I just know what each of the
Mm,
characters is.
yeah.
Like the one with two characters is filtered by dollar amount or yen amount. Go to the very bottom, expand it, click the very bottom box, and you can see everything that is sold for the thing you looked up. It's not. There's no science behind it. It's just go look at it, write some stuff down, see what it's selling, and then you can determine from there what's going on. Um, what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
I should,
Yeah.
we should sell this stuff behind a Patreon wall. 39.99.
There you
We'll
go.
give you all the insights.
Nick actually posted in the chat. He said that one of the issues is that card shops won't give you the full price for tens quite often because it's not a quote unquote true 10. That has somewhat translated to the online market, many reasons. So card shops, that's pretty interesting. If card shops would pay like different prices based on which, well, I mean that kind of makes sense though. I'm sure if you go into a card shop with a CGC card, you probably get less quoted to you than a PSA equivalent. That's just how the markets work, I guess. But it's
One thing
interesting
I've
to
I've
yeah.
learned, or I think is true, is BGS 10s typically go for more in Japan than PSA 10s.
Yeah.
So I can see,
Well, they're definitely harder to
I
get.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely hard to get. I can see like some type of narrative around like, well, if it's not a true PSA 10, it definitely won't be a BGS 10, and so they're not willing to pay, you know, top price because they know it's not really worth that. But I think in like the Western market, English market, dude, if it's like at least decent, most people don't care about the card; they care about the grade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, flip it to someone who does, who thinks that way. Because
It makes
you
for
know,
great arbitrage opportunity. That's for sure.
yeah,
um, the different thoughts behind the different companies. Like if they're less on PSA and PSA sells for cheaper over there, obviously here everyone only cares about PSA 10. So I will happily buy the Japanese PSA 10s and sell them to the English market.
my FOMO
um,
wants me to grab my dog. His name's not Bubba. I just call him Bubba. Let me see if when one of them starts scratching at the door, I'll open it up.
okay.
They will because they're super needy and annoying.
Okay, so you mentioned vending. That's something that you've been doing more recently. I feel like the last maybe
Twice.
month you've done a couple shows. Um,
The
so
same
let's
show
talk.
twice, two different times.
So let's talk about just the now that you've done it a few times. I want to. There's a lot of people out there, especially with like the vendor POV videos. I think in different Collecticon recaps and stuff. I think there's a lot of people out there who want to vend for the first time, or want to try it, or want to dip their toes into it. So now that you've done it a few times, I've done it a few times. I want to put together a list between the two of us on tips that we would give people who want to first start out and get vending. So I put together a little bit of a list. Um,
Oh, all right.
but
Let's do
if
this.
do you want me to, I'll go first. So the first one I have is stock up on snacks and drinks and keep yourself hydrated because a lot of times, especially at small events, there may not be like a concession spot, like concession. It's not going to be. They're not going to have a company coming in and like cater the event or anything. You're not going to
Yeah.
have food or water available to you. So definitely make sure you bring that stuff because I think it
DoorDash is
was
your friend, by the way.
yeah, because I think the first one that I went to I didn't bring anything and I was dying. I was dying because it was like a 9 hour show or 8 hour show, and I was there by myself, and it was like I didn't bring anything. I don't know why, but I got caught with literally nothing, and I was dying by the end of it.
Did you
Yeah,
not trust the vendors around you, or have someone you could like ask to watch over your stuff?
well, that's another one of my list.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, you're good.
Uh,
um, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Food is critical. So I fast almost every single day. Like I don't typically eat breakfast. I start around lunch, if
Mm.
not later. And that plus coffee, a little bit of protein, like jerky, whatever. And then the adrenaline of like selling. I agree, you bring food and water. I didn't have a problem because I just wasn't hungry.
You almost
The first
forget
time.
about it. And
You
then
just
it's all
forget
of a
about it.
sudden like,
You'll
oh
crash,
crap, I
bro.
haven't eaten for like 7 hours.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
But DoorDash is your friend. Like we DoorDash like some sandwiches or whatever, had them delivered. They were cool. They brought them into the lobby. I picked it up.
yeah,
I ate my, giant ass sandwich over my slabs, and people were like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" I'm like eating this giant sandwich. So, it's
yeah,
it's. I agree. You gotta fuel yourself. I would actually say like related to that, and this is more so on the physical end. Vending does take a lot out of you, just like
yeah,
physically.
does.
So what you do before sleeping, eating, stretching, exercise, all that helps a lot. Are you going well hydrated? Are you going well fed from the night before or that week? Like it'll help you.
Yeah, yeah, true. Heading into the second one, you kind of
Wait, can I
mentioned
give you
already.
my first tip?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Uh, this might totally just destroy what you're gonna say and yours.
Maybe that's all right.
Uh, just sell cool shit.
Oh yeah, that was one,
Like that's,
but that works.
and I think like part of it for me, the reason why I wanted to vend is because I've looked around the space. A lot of the business guys who run who sell cards and have like content profiles like IGs and YouTubes, the thing that I was always envious of is like, dude, how are you getting these collections? Like, are you serious? Like, some random person hit you up to buy their, booster boxes from their grandpa's basement or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I realized as I started to sell more on eBay and like TCG Player, people don't reach out to you for that stuff. I mean, maybe every now and then some idiots like, hey, can we take this deal off of eBay and go to Instagram? But
Oh yeah.
for the most part, people are not gonna proactively tell you like, hey, I have something to sell. I got like this. I got these slabs of booster boxes. So for me, vending was an opportunity to like start that conversation and like get my name out there
Yeah.
in a way where like I tell people I buy. I'm not even buying half the time. Oh yeah, I'm always buying. Sorry, that's like my secret. I'm not even buying half the time, but I will gladly buy if it's worth buying.
Yeah.
So it really is about just being able to like create that, because otherwise, like, where are you going to get the opportunity to tell people, hey, I'm down to look at your collection? You don't want to post in Facebook groups because those are like just terrible cesspools at this point.
Yeah.
It's
Everyone's
so
posting the
crowded.
same thing, like want to buy
Same
collection
thing.
70%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love
Um.
the Facebook posts where someone has a screenshot of their bank account
Oh yeah.
and it's like
Or like $100 bills
50,000,
all over the bed.
and you're like, kind of looks photoshopped, kind of doesn't.
Yeah.
Just yeah. Anyway,
Um.
just so cool stuff. Like, what do I mean by that? When you start to vend, it's really easy just to want to sell stuff. You'll learn very quickly based on like your local show. You don't want to sell what everyone else is selling unless you like have the bottom prices.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to undercut people, and like that's just a game I don't want to play. I've always approached selling in my cards business as like, I want to sell a lot of cool stuff that people don't typically see, and that's Japanese. And that tactic for the second time around at the show that I've into that in the Bay Area, it like worked. I
Yeah.
had, modern, I had a vintage Japanese binder, I had a mid-era Japanese binder. Both the binders ended up getting bought out like after the fact, but some of my prices in the cards were, I priced it at equivalent to TCG Player and eBay for English, and
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
Someone paid me $90 for a heavily played Rockets Mewtwo Japanese. Like this thing was destroyed. He was like, "Oh my god, $90, dude! This is a steal! Like I can't find this anywhere." I'm like, "Really? Sure. Like
Go ahead.
here you go."
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. The whole like getting your name out there. After the first um Comic Con here locally that I vended, I was the only Pokemon person, but I had multiple people come up and are like, "Hey, do you? Oh, we have Pokemon cards in the basement. Do would you buy them from me?" And blah blah blah. And I'm taking down their information. Well, like 10 months after, I get a message from this old lady who has an autistic son that lives with them, and they collected cards together, and it was that $10,000 collection that I bought and made like an insane amount of money off of from that show.
Never, yeah,
It's like,
never judge. Just
yeah,
be arms wide open, and I think vending allows for that. Like,
yep,
you'll meet so many people from all types of backgrounds. I got a couple stories on that, and you'll never know who has what, just
yeah,
cash wise, and also stuff to sell.
yeah, and yeah, just especially, I mean, that could be another one we put on there, but don't be the guy who just like sits there and looks ornery the whole time and doesn't engage with the people that come up. Like if kids come up,
Yeah,
like in their opening packs, like get hype for them. Try and be engaging and nice to everyone that comes up too, because like you said, you never know who's going to come up, and if you have a good first impression, I think first impressions are super important. And if you have a good first impression compared to the 10 other people sellers that are in the room there, they're going to want to sell their stuff to you possibly. So
yeah. Can I tell you a story real quick?
yeah.
It's short, I promise. The first time I vended at this show, this guy comes up, no judgment, just explaining who he was. Fully tatted dude. English was not his first language. And I'm like, "What's up, man?" And he's just like rifling through things, like just looking at a bunch of random stuff. I'm like, "Dude, what is he looking for?" He asked me like, "Hey, man, I can't find this anywhere, but do you have loose 151 packs?" And I'm like, "Loose? No." And my reaction was like, no. And dude, you do not want to be buying loose 151 packs because
Yeah.
obviously every Japanese set is weighable, and if you're buying loose pack, it's probably has no hit. So, I had my judgments on him, like, dude, what does this guy want, whatever. And then I started being friendly and started giving him advice and explaining to him, like, you don't want to buy loose packs. Turns out, like, he is a Japanese fan, does not use YouTube, Facebook, Discord, any of these platforms, right? He's just a guy who's really interested in Japanese. He's not connected in the way that we are, and he never heard of this. Like, he never knew that you're not supposed to buy loose packs, right? So I'm explaining
Yeah.
this to him. He's like, the whole tone of the conversation changed. He's like, I'm so appreciative of you telling me this. Thank you so much. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. So a couple hours go by and he's still there. He comes back around. He buys like $300 to $400 of stuff for me, and he tells me it's because I helped, like I gave him that piece of advice.
Yeah.
Fast forward to this most recent show, I see him again, and he spends like $200, $300 in singles. And this is just like an interaction that I would never have online or, on eBay. I probably
Yeah.
ignore the message someone asked me, right? Like, you
Yeah.
just don't get that experience. But I think the larger point is you never know who you're going to meet. And you also never know who has the pockets and is willing to spend
That's
and who you
that's
can
true.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Um, the second one that I have is one that you briefly mentioned, but introduce yourself to your fellow vendors, everyone that's like next to you and stuff. Try to be, cordial. You might be selling the same stuff. It might be a little contentious or whatever, but for the most part, I've never had a bad experience talking to the other people that are there. Everyone's there slinging cards, doing the same thing. And yeah, if you get comfy with them, just be like, I might go to the restroom a few times. Do you mind looking after my stuff? Especially if you're there alone. Obviously, I would recommend if you can go with somebody, that would be really a fun experience for to do it with someone else. But if you're
Yeah.
alone, like everyone's more than welcome to help other people out. They know you know, they know what's going on. So
Us vendors stick together, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's a very normal thing just to like, hey, watch my stuff. Um, I'm lucky to vend this guy man on Instagram. His name's Jake. I've been vending with him a few times, so we just kind of look after each other. And that's been fine. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Make friends, get to know them. Um, yeah, it's usually not a problem.
Well, because even so, like a lot of the vendors are probably vending all the different shows in the area. So if you're going to start
Yeah,
vending like a bunch of different shows in a 20-mile radius, 50-mile radius, you're going to see a lot of these people at all these different shows too.
yeah.
Because
You want to know how I got into vending?
oh
It wasn't like a dream of mine or anything like that. So, in Josh the old card shop's Discord,
yeah, yeah.
I joined that like a while back, mainly to see what's going on in the different shows in my area. There was a show in Fairfield, like 30 minutes from me, Sacramento area, and a guy in the Discord was vending there. I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna go there. It was a pretty big show. Pokemon turnout was okay. Go up, never met this guy. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm Ernie. Started talking to him. And he just tell me like what a great experience it is vending. Because I mentioned him, I sell a lot online. Like I get a free weekend away from the baby. My wife's letting me do my thing. I'm trying to make the most out of my time. And just the amount of like joy he was explaining to me. His name's Cal. Um, I was like, this sounds awesome. Like I can sell a bunch of stuff in a day. I can meet people, which hospitality I think is something that I've always wanted to like work in. Like I like the idea of customer service and that kind of thing. Um, so that's kind of how I got into it. Is like I was just convinced because I met a vendor who was really excited about it. He's a good friend of mine now. Seen him at the shows. But yeah, that's really how I got into it. It was not something I decided I wanted to do from the get go
Yeah.
as part of my business or anything like that. I would go to shows. I've been to Collecticon to buy, which is great for buying. Um, but vending never really crossed my mind.
Yeah. 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 Vending. I forget if I think I did the local show a few months before I got into the comic book store here locally for the consignment, and it's the same guy. He runs the event and everything. So we had a
Oh,
rapport,
up in the
the shop and
the
the show. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So there was already like a relationship there. He specifically makes that show, and I don't know if he's going to do it again this year, but last year he specifically made it so I was the only Pokemon guy there. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to have a variety of people, but you're going to be the only Pokemon guy there," and he put me right at the front, like right in front of the front door. I was like,
Did it
damn,
work
okay.
out?
Yeah, it was good. It was a good show. Um, so yeah, that's
Nice.
been that was my first. Actually, the first time I ever vended was a really stupid thing. I wasn't selling Pokemon. I was trying to sell myself as a content creator. It was horrible. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, basically, I went up and set up a table, and I had two TV screens going with like live streams on them, and then
Yeah.
I was handing out cards and like, hey, you should come watch me on Twitch or whatever, and trying to like locally plug in to the community because the table was like $100. I was like, it's comic book people, it's nerds. I played Marvel Spider-Man and whatever, so I'll just have that going on the screen and I'll just talk to people. And it was fun talking to people, but it was, I mean, nothing came from it because who's gonna do that?
Yeah, that's
Um,
rough.
yeah, but then I did the Pokemon stuff later, and uh, that was much better than that the first shot at vending selling myself, I guess.
So do you think vending is a core part of your business now?
I want it to be because I think around here you could probably do a show a month. There's probably enough within like an
A good
hour.
show a month?
Yeah, about one show a month.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had that here, but some of the shows are kind of not great.
Yeah, there's a monthly show that kind of skips around, and it's a sports and Pokemon and Funko thing that's kind of in this like I don't know 25-mile radius here. It skips around different towns and stuff. So you could probably just stick with them and do probably one a month. And the one that I did was decent. It wasn't like amazing or anything, but it was decent for just going there on a Saturday and selling stuff. Um, but yeah, I would like to make it more of a thing. I like it. I like going on Saturday and making, a couple $1,000 or whatever and just sitting there talking Pokemon with people. Like that's a pretty cool Saturday to me. But
Yeah. So my wife and I have an agreement. We made this agreement before that we had our baby, that each of us would get a day or a weekend every month to just do whatever, and then the other one would watch the baby.
yeah.
So I've been using those chips to vend, which in hindsight kind of sucks 'cause I don't get any rest. But in terms of a core part of the business, like last two times I decided to vend, I think I told you how much I sold the first time. Dude, I made a killing.
Yeah, yeah.
I made a killing. Yeah, it was. I sold a bunch of stuff, a bunch of slabs, sold through binders, and just at a volume and quantity that I didn't expect to for where I live. I mean, I live in the Bay Area. It's fairly populated, but um, I think the shows are starting to pick up with Pokemon. Whereas
Yeah.
6 months to a year ago, based on the people I've talked to, there are a lot of card shows, but they're mainly sports. There's some Pokemon, but they've been kind of underwhelming. So I want to do more. I want to do Collecticon, but it's like the closest Collecticon to me would be LA, which is already over. I might do Chicago if I had a group to go with, but it's like I could
Everyone's
probably
going to
sell.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I
I
think
could
there's
probably
like
sell just
50
as
people
much.
from the different discords going to Chicago.
Oh man, that sounds awesome.
And yeah, there's a lot of people that
Uh,
live there. I think Ponga lives there, so he's there, and a whole bunch of
mhm.
people live near Chicago. So that whole group is going to be there.
If I went, I would get the most benefit buying though.
Yeah,
I think selling, I could sell most of the stuff I have here. I can sell. I have been able to sell fairly easily with less competition at the shows I've been to. And
yeah,
again, it's because I'm not selling, English Mega Modern stuff. I'm selling Japanese vintage, mid era, some Japanese modern, like the top hits,
yeah.
um, and those sorts of things. So I don't think I would benefit too much from selling in person there, but buying, yeah, I'd probably be buying. And buying is way more fun.
Yeah. I'm more of a making money guy and not not a,
Yeah.
but yeah, buying is fun though. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's true. Um, I got a couple more on my list. So
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot we were talking about this. I'm
no,
the
that's
worst.
good. Um, Number three I have is be willing to negotiate. Buyers want to feel like they're winning. So even if it's like 10% off, like price your things not too high, but price it well enough that you're like, okay, if I sold this on eBay, it'd be what, 15, 20%. So if I take 10%, still coming out a little bit ahead and they're feeling like they're winning. So I'm going to come down a little bit. Like I had some cars that were like $270 slabs and the guy was like him and Han. He's like, "Oh, could you do any better on this?" And I was like, "Would you do 260?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll do 260." It's like $10 off. Of course I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that all day, every day. But he did it because he felt like he got a deal and he negotiated. So it's like just think about that when people are like, even if you're not offering a massive percentage off, they might still take it because they at least feel like they're getting some sort of a deal.
I have like two things related to that. It is okay to say no, and if you do, say it with confidence because buyers, I think when you say no and you mean it, they're like, "Oh crap, did I just mess this up?" I've
Oh
gotten
yeah.
that a lot. They're like, "Oh man, this vendor's not going to sell it to me." Like they're pretty firm. That means they're probably pretty confident and like it's a fair price. The other is bundle as much as you can. Like I in my vending video, I sold to this guy that's a TikTok streamer. He had like no intention of buying two of the slabs that he passed over, but I basically said like, "Hey, if you buy these two, I'll give you $20 off on each of them." And they ended up buying all five of the slabs for like $1,000. So I
Yeah.
got like $1,000 sale off of a sale that should have been like $600 because I bundled two cards that he passed over earlier, but gave him like it's only like 15% off, I think.
Yeah.
And here's you're gonna save $200 if you buy this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, great. You
Yeah.
just spent more money than you probably weren't going to because I decided to give you more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Absolutely. I agree completely. Um, the other one I have is price cards reasonably. I think you already mentioned this. I hate when I go to like if you know prices and you're walking by a booth and it's like you know that card's $200 and they have it for 300. You're like, what? I'm not even gonna go to that booth. I see one price that is like 50% higher than it should be, and I'm like, nope, I'm passing on that.
There's
Not going back.
there's this vendor. I don't like talking bad about people. I'll just say there's a vendor that is known at the shows that I've vended at and just go to visit. Everything that they price is like 20-30% over market, and they never negotiate. And
Hmm.
I always wonder, like, man, how do these guys, how are they making a living? Because they're asking like $130 for like $110 card, and they won't budge on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, pricing's fairly. I like Japanese because the obscurity of like pricing vintage stuff is very sorry, it is not exactly clear what the market price is for a lot of older Japanese stuff. And so what I'm able to do is say, like my mid-area Japanese stuff, the prices on eBay for half the stuff is like all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, I can say, they'll ask like, how'd you price this? I'm like, well, I looked at TCG player, which I do. And TCG players, when you go to heavy played, moderate played, like we played for mid-era stuff, it's also kind of all over the place. But at
Yeah.
least I can say I use some type of fair methodology based on what's happening in English to price this card. And so I'm not like pulling numbers out of my butt. Like
Yeah.
I have some reasoning, and that allows me to ask like I want $45 for this Delta species card that you haven't seen and it's slightly played. And they'll go look it up and they'll see like recent solds at like 20, 30, 50, 60. And I'll say, well, you can't buy that now. Like that's a recent sold. It's not available anymore. So
Yeah.
I think my price of $45 is fair. And it has worked it works most of the time because they know they can't just walk away and say, "Oh, you're overpriced. I want to buy this elsewhere." Like, where are you gonna buy it, buddy?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where are you gonna buy this card that you can't find elsewhere?
I always price especially slabs. I price everything, um, basically like low list on eBay because that's what I would price it on eBay is low list on eBay.
Yeah.
And then whenever someone comes up, because like you said, mid era is like you got Z and G auctioning freaking mid era PSA 10s at like 50% of the
Shout
price
out
to
to
buy it
James.
now. Thanks, James.
I've given him so many slabs. It's like my last submission of slabs to him because I had a bunch of stuff that just crashed from last year that I bought. I just put into a flat rate. I was like,
Sent it off.
just
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm sending to you. Just tell me what it is, what I'm getting back in like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, so I whenever someone asks like, "Hey, how did you price these?" I'm just like, "Low list on eBay." Like you're not gonna find it lower on eBay. This is what it is. Like, and
Yeah.
if someone, I wonder because I know at some point someone's gonna come up and be like, "Well, it sold at auction for $80 and you have it for 120," and I'm just gonna have to say like I don't comp off auctions, like because it's just a completely
I
different way of selling something that's gonna garner a completely different price than I buy it now.
I don't know how controversial this is, but I have a very I have my own stance on it based off of my last show. There's a guy there that was a fellow vendor. Seemed like a good guy. He got into this long conversation with me about my car, like my more expensive cards.
Mm.
And then he started using PWCC comps.
Oh
And PWCC comps are like most of the time not equivalent to eBay comps. They're
no,
lower.
I mean the buyer pool is way
And
smaller.
the buyer pool smaller and like
Yeah,
availability. And he was sitting like arguing with me. This card that you're asking $2,000 for is worth $800. I'm like, I'm not taking anywhere near $800
yeah,
because some moron sold on PWCC last summer,
yeah,
because they wanted to liquidate. And so, yeah, that's the one for me. I think it depends on the card, but when people lean very heavily into like one data point that exists and they use it conveniently for the price that they want to propose,
yeah,
I just like die inside. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I cannot do business
yeah.
with you.
It's not
I'm
gonna
sorry.
happen. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
one guy come up at Collecticon. He was looking at Tag Team Full Arts, and that was after they spiked, they came harshly back down, and the auctions were just horrible on them. They were tens, and so I had him in my case, and he was looking at last sold auction prices. I had low list on eBay, and we were trying to come back and forth, and he is. I ended up giving in instead of saying no. I should have just said no, but I ended up giving in and giving him a pretty decent deal on it. But it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I've gotten into arguments with some people like it's what the market pays. I'm like, no, not everyone's on eBay 24/7 looking up some of these cards. And so your buyer pool is conveniently the people who look up these niche cards,
yeah,
which is not,
not a lot of
you
people.
know this. Mid-era mid-era
You got to
PSA
be
9s are
patient. Yeah.
you might as well just burn money if you auction mid-era cards and also PSA 9s. Like
Yeah, yeah.
people aren't looking this stuff up. It doesn't mean they're worth nothing. It just means, you know, the recommendation engine, what people see on eBay, it's not what people search up right now.
Yeah. Yep. No,
That's all it is.
absolutely agree. Last thing I got is think about the type of event that you're at and plan accordingly to the event. Because I've done a few different shows. I've done Collecticon, which is like a big collector event, which
Yeah.
you can bring more expensive things and do better. I've been to local family Comic Cons that have
Mhm.
30 vendors and maybe 1,000 people walk through during the day, or 500 people walk through during the day, and that's going to be more packs and low cost singles for kids that are walking by, and you're probably going to have less sales overall, but that's just the event that you're at. So figure out the type of event you're at, and then plan your inventory accordingly to what you think is going to walk in the door. So
Yeah. I think I totally agree with that. What's tough for me is I don't I don't think I want to have the opportunity to try a bunch of different events. And so I have to kind of either be a buyer, go to other events in the area just to understand like what people sell, what people buy, ask vendors,
Mm.
and I have to guess a bit, and I have to decide: do I want to lean more into like $1 and $2 singles? Do I want to have so my learning in the last show, my bulk vintage box between $1 and $3, a lot of people wanted to get into, but the challenge I had is I had no space because I had a 6 foot table instead of 8.
Okay.
So I had to make a trade off. Is it the binder or the bulk box? I just decided the binders because they had more value in them. Um, but yeah, some of it's guesswork and some of it is I would say too, like bring more than you think you need, but don't expect to sell it all depending on the space that you have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
variety, binders, bulk bins, slabs, sealed if that's your thing. I haven't had success selling sealed in this area.
I didn't
People
have
just kind of
any,
stare
yeah,
at it and like,
success
what is
either.
this Japanese stuff? Yeah. Um, but yeah, having don't lean too hard into one thing unless you're confident it's what people want.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely agree. I think I mean, the shop does decent with the Japanese boxes, or has at least in the last like month. But at the show that I brought it, it was like the only people that wanted it are people that wanted to buy at like 60% to rip on whatnot streamers or whatever. And it was like
Yeah.
Shiny Treasure EX. They wanted to buy at like a cheaper price so that they could rip it on their their whatnot or their TikTok account. Which I understand, but it's like
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen. Sorry. um, so that's what I have for tips. Do you have anything else before we move on to our last topic of the night, which is going to be about some of your content you've been doing recently? Any other things you want to throw into that list before we move on?
I would just double down and just sell cool shit. I mean, I'm like, I like to be the weird one offering different things. That's just how my brain works. But I think like trying to be a vendor that sells what everyone else sells, it just sucks. Like you gotta undercut, have the lowest prices. You're not really providing anything unique. I would try to figure out like what do you want to be known for? What do you want to specialize in? At this point in at the shows I go to, like people know I'm gonna have Japanese stuff. So like, I've already had people asking me, "Hey, next show, can you bring XYZ stuff in Japanese?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna get that if you sell Shiny Treasure or Mega Modern stuff. Like you'll just have too much competition, honestly.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna bring my sealed Japanese boxes to the next Collecticon, and then I was like, everyone's gonna have those. Everyone's buying them right now. Everyone's gonna be trying to sell them at the next Collecticon. It's like, yeah. Uh, all right,
Gross.
so
Ew. Japanese modern.
yeah. So at the last show, so you've been making content. You have maybe 10 or 12 videos right now on your channel, and
Pokemon stuff?
Pokemon stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
Um, and the majority of it so far has been kind of Pokemon Steven style, like sorting through different mail days, talking about your thoughts on
Yeah.
the market and different things you're buying and selling and stuff, different topics here and there. But recently, you decided to go all in, buy all the equipment, everything that you need to start shooting
Yeah.
vendor POV videos. And you have two of those up on your channel right now. By the way, you guys, there's a pinned message at the top of the chat. That is to Ernie's YouTube channel. So definitely click on that and go
Thanks,
subscribe
man.
to Ernie's YouTube channel.
Do I owe you a
Um,
kickback for that?
what?
I was making a dumb joke. Do I owe you a kickback for that? I'm kidding.
No, you're good. So tell us about how that went. Why did you decide to kind of on a whim go all in and try the vendor POV kind of trend that's happening right now and what's blowing up across kind of the Pokemon space in YouTube?
We'll
Why?
start there and then go into
Yeah.
content and what
Yeah.
I'm yeah, so I think like a lot of people right now, the hot thing is this vendor content. And I think what's driving it is like genuine curiosity in how people engage with each other.
Mm,
Like how do I go about an approach like buying something and negotiating? How do I say no and like when I want to sell something? And I think it's just a side of the hobby that everyone knows existed, but you know, having someone record a transaction is like the corniest thing to think about. But it's just done now in a more natural way. Like cameras just up, I'm talking, whatever. Like I've seen some versions of the vendor POV videos where they like stage. Have you seen this? Like they stage a transaction.
See, I was actually going to ask about that
Oh,
later later on. But so but to go back to like why you think it appeals to people. I look at it almost like a Pawn Stars thing. Like Pawn Stars is huge. Now
really?
that's obviously staged
Yeah,
and fake,
that's obviously fake. Yeah,
but
but
to see the kind of the real version of that and not the staged fake version of it, and to
yeah,
see, normal deals, big deals, random, like you said, random people who you'd never think would drop $500 on slabs all of a sudden dropping $500 on
it,
slabs, like
yeah.
that's interesting stuff to watch, and interesting, interactions that you can share with people.
I think too, like generally speaking, the content, a content type that does well on YouTube and these content platforms is like how people engage with each other in public.
Mm,
Like there's
yeah.
different forms of this. Like someone's doing a gesture of goodwill, it's caught on camera, or some guy doesn't pick up his dog poop and they get an alter. Like it's just like two people
Yeah.
engaging with each other, and it hopefully is not staged. So I think there's genuine curiosity around that, and the hobby you don't really see that unless you go to trade shows. And like even for me, I hadn't been to a card show in like I don't even remember the last time, like 10 years, right? So I've been selling on eBay pretty consistently for the last 2 or 3 years. TCG Player started last year. This is a side of the hobby that like I personally have never experienced, and so the
Yeah.
content for me taught me about the engagement, so how to buy, how to sell. It also taught me about what are people willing to pay, and that I think the reason why I decided to vend is because I see way more competition now on TCG Player and eBay,
Mm,
and I need some type of way to liquidate some of my stuff and charge a little bit extra for the cards I can get for cheap elsewhere. For example, that Magikarp from Triple Beat,
yeah. Yeah.
Aldea Magikarp.
Yeah.
In English, it's like $80 or whatever.
Yeah. It's
Makes no
expensive.
sense.
Yeah.
In Japanese, I think it's at 20 now, but I was buying it like $10.
Yeah.
I could sell it in person for $25 because the buyer pool, there are people who like Japanese or kind of like Japanese, but they know that English is popping off. And so they see it and they're like, hey, that card, I need that card. Like I'm willing $25. That doesn't seem too bad, right?
Yeah.
And so you get that. You're not gonna get that on eBay. No one's gonna no one's
No.
gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh wow, I'm gonna pay more than I can find from half these guys, from Retro or whoever these guys who are listing on eBay. Like everyone's competing with each other, and no
Yeah.
one's the buyers are not having that interaction with the sellers. Um, so I think the vendor content it does well. There's just genuine curiosity. There will be a point, and I say this just from my experience in this space. There will be a point of saturation. There will be a point of how to do this content best. But right now, I think we're in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, one thing I was thinking is kind of what happened with the trade up challenges. Like when the trade up
Oh,
challenges started, it was interesting because it was like you're flipping up to something in one show, and it wasn't annoying 12-year-olds. It was, people actually making it a game and making it interesting and making it like naturally. But now if you go on TikTok and see trade up challenges, they're all staged. They're all influencers going to different influencers, trading up
yeah.
ridiculous trade ups that make no sense. And at the end of it, you got like a first edition Charizard in your hand. And it's like, what? Like, nobody, I don't know if people care about them anymore. I really have never cared about them. But I think at the beginning, because wasn't it, there was a YouTuber, I think, Ryan Trahan. He like started with a penny, and then he tried to travel like across the US starting with a penny, and he documented like every day he put out a new vlog on getting across the United States or something like that, starting with a
But why
penny.
would he need to start with a penny?
Or maybe it
Couldn't he
was a
just like
paperclip, I've
try
almost said.
paperclip?
Um, but it was this idea of like, can you start with something worth nothing basically, and build
Use
that
that
value
collateral? Yeah.
up to like get a hotel room and to get a bicycle and
Yeah.
to, and that type of content I think was really interesting for a while. But then obviously in the Pokemon space that turned into trade up challenges, and that like very quickly I feel like got really popular. And then I guess I don't really know if it's popular anymore because it's not content that I consume, but it seems like I don't see it as much anymore, especially
Yeah.
in a like a natural way.
This is the
This seems
natural
very
way that
staged
this
and fake.
content, this stuff runs its course, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's a honeymoon phase right now, and eventually there'll be a upgraded premium phase. Like, what's the best way to make this content? And then it's going to be what's the gold standard, and then everything below the gold standard is just going to be like shunned and like people aren't going to care about.
yeah,
Um, so I think there's genuine curiosity around it. For me, again, it's about the access, selling to people, and being able to sell more in the hobby. But the reason why I decided to make the content, I think, my challenge as I've gotten older is like, can I try something new and challenge myself
yeah,
and like put myself out there? And like spending $800 on filming equipment is probably a little aggressive. And like I had microphone problems the first day, and I was like freaking out, like, dude, this is a waste of time. But then I
yeah,
just let it rip. Like I didn't care. Like whatever the footage comes out to be, it comes out to be. And so I think it was about for me introducing a challenge to myself as part of this business. I genuinely like the content, so let's see if I can do it. And that was really my motivation. You were asking about like my channel and what I plan to do with it. I don't view content creation as like um my career or my the thing I want to get into next. I view
yeah.
it very similarly to so, you mentioned Pokemon Steven, who I've been watching since he's had like a couple hundred subscribers. He used to be called 1 Minute
One
Flips.
minute flips. Yeah,
And there's another guy named Isle Collectibles. He
yeah,
has like
yeah,
a thick East Coast accent. They genuinely love their cards. They love their business, and they just like to like talk. And for me, like I work best when I can engage with people, talk about the hobby, hang out, and I'm not trying to be a guru. I'm not trying to be um like DPM is like awesome. I don't think I could ever be that or want to be that. Deep Pocket Monster, sorry.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Um,
got you.
those guys, those content creators are doing a killing, and what they're doing is like on a whole nother level. For me, I view content creation as like it's just me hanging out, being myself. Like I'm opening up cards. Let's talk about random stuff. Like I don't
Yeah,
care about what the trends are. I don't care about what people are talking about on like what's hot in the algorithm. I just want to be able to enjoy my cards, card collecting, card business, and the content I make. I just wanted to support that. And I think part of it's like I'm at a point in my life in my late 30s. I have a kid now. I have to like invest my time. When I spend my free time, it's got to be something that I really enjoy.
yeah.
And I've been through the content hamster wheel before, checking subscribers every day and like how many views and like that sucks, man. And that's why I didn't want to start a new channel because as much as I as much as I don't want to admit, if I were to start a new channel, or sorry, if I did start a new channel, part of that is growth. Part of that is like, how much did I grow today? Is my content working? Is my content sticking? Is it? And that's all stuff that I think mentally would just destroy the hobby for me. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to care. And I'm
It's an
not saying I
added
don't
added
listen.
level of stress to something that doesn't need to be stressful. Yeah.
And even if I'm successful at it, what's the end game? Like, I've already had a successful career, not to brag, but like, I've had a successful career. I have good income. I have a good life. Why would I want to introduce something that like people just bitch and moan about all the time
True.
and like throw rocks at you? And it's like, I
Yeah.
just want to open up cards. Like if you don't like it, go away. Like
Yeah.
that's how I'm choosing to approach this. And so what's my strategy? Like I buy thousands of dollars of Japanese stuff. Do you want to see what I bought? Cool. Let's share that experience.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to a show. Come see the awkward interactions I have with like these random people. Awesome. Um, I was trying to post every day on Instagram for a year. I did it for 100 days. And that was the experience for me that was like, I'm not doing this for the right reason.
You didn't like
I
having
shouldn't,
a something. I get what you're saying. Like an extra obligation that is just
it's
why?
not rewarding.
Yeah.
Like, and, I have more. I get more out of the hobby, like talking to you about Japanese stuff, exchanging DMs, buying product, like
Yeah.
then here's did you know, like guess what I found in my binder?
Yeah.
Let's try to, it's just like I don't know. That's not me. And
Yeah.
I just want to make content for who I am. Oh man. Greeny watched a video of me camping on high. Yeah, that's back in the day, man. Let me just say something about Call of Duty. Call of Duty changed my life. We used to run train on kids back in the day. Like that was our turf. So yeah, a lot of that content was awesome. Yeah, I just again as I've gotten older, I figure out what I like to enjoy, and this hobby is awesome. I love it. I'm genuinely curious all the time. I can sit on body for days on end, browsing, searching. I could do that all day and every day. Anything that potentially jeopardizes that, I'm not going to do. And
Yeah.
having an elaborate channel strategy and content, just like
Yeah.
I, I applaud people that can do it. Dude, that's not me.
No,
Um,
yeah. I'm in the same boat. I try to be more consistent. I try to put out a video every week. I make it like a consistent thing for myself. But yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I had a recent video that's doing really well. I put out the next video, 200 views. It's like, whatever. One gets 11,000, one gets 200. Who cares? Like, it just
yeah,
the algorithm likes what it likes, and at a certain point, you just have to give into it and be like, you just make the content you want to make, and if it picks it up, it picks it up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If you have fun with it, great. Like,
yeah, and just get your priorities straight. Like, why are you making the content? I think
yeah,
everyone, if they could, yeah, let's be YouTube famous. Let's be Twitch famous. Like, let's be a popular TikTok. But it's not to what end? Like,
yeah,
what benefit do you get out of that at the end of the day? Instead of people yelling at you and giving you compliments all the time. It's like,
yeah,
I don't need you to do that. Just buy my cards.
yeah, yeah,
Buy my
exactly.
stuff. That's all I need you to do. Buy my stuff and sell me your collections for cheap. That's it.
So, I have a couple of more questions on the vendor POV front.
Lay it on me.
When you were filming at your latest show, uh,
Yeah.
did you have any? Did you have any weird moments? Were there people like, "Why do you have a camera?" Were there people like weird about being recorded? Did anyone like, "Hey, I don't want to be on camera," anything like that? Because I feel like, and I don't know how like Bulbasaur and these other people do it. If they have them like sign a waiver or something, being like, "You could show up on a YouTube video," or how they do it, but like I, at any moment, if someone got pissed enough seeing themselves on a YouTube video, they could take that video down. Like that's their right if you didn't, get their permission or whatever, right? So it's just like,
So,
did you
yeah.
have any weird moments with people like acting strange about
Can
the
I talk
camera?
about that part real quick though? Like
Yeah,
what you're
yeah, go for
mentioning,
it.
like consent, content, social media, video platforms. The platforms all have the same terms of service. When I worked at Twitch, it's the same thing. They take no liability on the content that's published. The user who uploads it, they are saying that I had the consent of the people in this footage, or I had the consent to use this footage. Um, what happens through that understanding is users obviously don't get the consent of the people they record. But the platforms are not going to take that content down unless the person who's either content rights or copyright, IP rights or whatever rights are being infringed upon. They go to the platforms and they say, "Hey, you need to take this down." And
Right.
so, even for me, if anyone in any of these videos that I post or these vendors post and say like, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to post this conversation," then it'd be a battle of like, well, I actually was recording myself and you were in it. Maybe there's something there to like defend the vendor. But
Yeah.
in most cases, the platforms will probably side with the person that was being recorded, like, you know, hey, you didn't get the rights, Mr. Vendor, you gotta take this video down. I will say though, times are changing. The platforms don't care. Like
Yeah.
they are not incentivized to even comply with a lot of those requests unless it's like Marvel, getting
Right.
pissed
Like
like,
a
"Hey
larger
man,
company.
this is my movie. on your platform, you're losing me millions of dollars. I'm going to sue you unless you take it down. But like the day-to-day people, it's just accepted practice at this point. I'm not
And,
saying
and
it's right.
well, most people aren't
It's
going to go
just
through the work of like a cease and desist or something like that, or some sort of like. Most people are just going
yeah.
to maybe get pissed about it and then move on or whatever.
There's a
Um,
public tool people can use to request the content to be taken down. All the
hmm,
platforms have it. It's called a DMCA tool.
yeah,
Um, but again, the platform's like, cool. Let's just pretend this problem's going to go away tomorrow because there's no money to be made in settling this dispute. And that's what it comes down to. Is like, how do these businesses grow and make money? And like you and I having a spat because I recorded us, like that's our problem. No one else, like no one else cares, right?
when you could probably
Anyway,
make a
sorry.
case for security reasons anyway. You could probably say like I had the camera out for
That was
security.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
Um,
a piece of paper there that said I was filming. They did not read it. Like anyway,
yeah.
it's not that I think it's right. It's just that's how the game is now. So
Yeah.
anytime that topic comes up, that's how it's going to be probably approached. Um, Most of the time, I would say when I vended last, the most annoying thing for me was people being like in front of the
Oh,
camera. I'm like,
yeah.
please, I'm happy that you don't care you're being recorded, but please, you are destroying this. You know, I
Trying
had
to
this
get in
one
the
guy.
shot.
I had this guy flipping through the binder, one of my binders, and he was just like in the shot the whole time while I was trying to do this deal with someone. I had to cut it because it looked like I was talking to someone who wasn't responding back to me. Like, anyway,
You're just talking to a dude who's ignoring you, looking through the binder.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think recording, you just gotta treat it like, hey, I'm recording. If you don't want to be on it, just want to let you know. Just be courteous. But most people honestly don't care. I actually had a couple people on Instagram reach out and be like, "Oh my god, I didn't think I would make the footage." I'm like, "Thank God," because I thought you were gonna send me a message saying you're pissed that you're in the footage.
Yeah. Take it down. Oh
So
man. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny when I went to Japan, not the last time, but the time before, where I took a bunch of content and stuff. It's funny how different people react to this, like
I mean
having your phone
Japan.
out
Yeah,
on a thing versus a camera like on your shoulder. Camera on your shoulder, no one even thinks about.
you
Like
probably
you
don't even see
holding
it.
it out like this, everyone's looking at you and hating you.
I mean, you went to Japan and recorded.
Yeah, yeah, different card
It's
shows and
a
stuff.
totally different culture. You're not even supposed to point with your finger. It's considered rude to go like this.
Yeah,
I think there's just a cultural difference there
yeah.
on how individuals behave in society. Um, I can't imagine going to a card store and filming based on my previous experiences. I would be so uncomfortable even asking
I only got thrown
uh,
out of one place.
for
So
recording.
for recording, yeah. It's because
Yeah.
it's because I had the phone out, on a stick and I was live. I was showing people around like a card store and I didn't see the sign. There was a sign in the front that said no
No recording.
recording. And I took
Yeah.
like one step in and this guy came over and was like, "No, no, 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 no." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry."
You go like this.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, "No
Yeah.
recording." It's like, "All right, I'm out." But
Yeah. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
different over
everyone,
there.
yeah. Um, let's see. And then the last question I had, we kind of talked about it already, but what do you, if you want to just reiterate, what do you think the natural evolution of this vendor POV stuff's going to be? Do you think that it's going to be a style of content that's going to be around for a while, or do you think it's kind of like a flash in the pan type thing?
There will be a point of there will be a point of quality standard that's going to be decided by the community. Who knows how long it's going to take? Probably a while because vendor POV content, like I'm not making another one for like 2 months, 2.5 months.
Do you think that quality
So
standard will include things becoming less authentic? Like,
someone's gonna do that and it's gonna be weird, man. Like someone's bound to do that regardless. I don't think the quality standard is gonna be that. I think it's gonna be more cuts and edits and more editing.
yeah,
Like Bulba Store does a really good job of this. Like they do screenshot of of a card, high res. I like kind of did a half-ass version where I just like snipped a photo and just threw it on there. I think that's gonna happen more. Subtitles cameras for both people that are facing, like you can see either what they're seeing or see their faces. Like
Yeah.
that'll be the evolution of what makes for better content. But I think like at the end of the day, as long as there's quality engagements between the buyer and the seller, I think you can probably get by not having highly produced POV content. For me, I'm never gonna make, just being completely honest, if I am required to invest more hours and more equipment and more stuff to like make my content better, I'm not going to do it because that's not why I'm doing this, right? What I can lean in on, and a lot of people can lean in on, is just make sure you have a real engagement that's like worth
Yeah.
people watching. Like I think that's the challenge a lot of people have, where it's not just the vendor POV content. It's like, who did you sell to? What did you sell? How did you negotiate? Did you meet like a total butthead person who like was really aggressive? Did you meet someone? There's a guy I watch. His name's Parkman. Have you heard of this guy?
Mm-mm.
Great vendor POV guy. I believe it was him. He got into like this 10 or 15-minute conversation with his dad, who is buying a town on no map Umbreon PSA 10 for his son. And then it turns out his dad is like a high school teacher. And the comments are like, everyone's like, yo, that's my teacher. Oh my God. And like, it was just a real genuine
Yeah.
interaction. His dad buying this $1,100 card for his son and negotiating and like asking questions, like, and the content quality was superb because of the engagement. The production quality, like if you ask someone who doesn't understand our content, they would say this production quality sucks because we're just doing like 1080p videos and like not
Yeah.
zooming in on faces. So I don't know. I think it'll
I
run
think
its
the
course.
I think the
Yeah,
authenticness though, even if it's a
yeah,
little rough, is gonna appeal to people. Like it's a whole like Tyler One still using a headset mic sort of thing. Like that sort of mentality is there where like people want the authenticity and people can sniff when something is like not right, you know?
yeah. That's going to be the most important thing. So if anyone gets in vendor content, obviously have a minimum bar for quality. Like I had that Insta360. It shoots in 4K. I decided to shoot in 1080 because I'm lazy. And also, if you shoot in 4K, it kills your battery, and then you have to have more storage you have to
Yeah,
swap
yeah.
out.
Storage
If you
size,
shoot in
yeah.
1080p, you can shoot for like 10 hours and not have to worry about it. And so you got to be at least like 1080, decent bit rate.
Do
You can
you
make out what we're saying.
do you find yourself interacting differently with people because you know you're on camera? Is there a different like, are you trying to be a bit showman because you know that it's going to be in a video, or were you just like, no, I'm just going to do the same thing. It's going to be recorded. You know, I have full control of the footage. You know, all that stuff, and it didn't change much. What do you think about that?
I think no, the answer is no. I think part of it's like I'm used to being filmed or interviewed, or you're doing an interview, or you're presenting to a company just from like professional experience. And
Mm.
so for me, I don't want to say it's natural, but like it doesn't bother me that I'm recorded. Obviously, like I'm not going to include when I pick my nose and like scratch my butt and stuff like
Right,
that. Like
right, yeah,
I'm just to be a normal human being, but I
yeah,
don't try to put on. I also think like when you start selling, like you don't have time to think about that stuff. You're just trying to sell.
yeah. You're
Like
like fully in the moment at that
you're
point. Yeah.
full moment trying to get people to buy and negotiate. Like I don't have time to be like, hey, can you just like re-say that real quick? And I'll like, dude, you don't.
Not sure
I,
if the mic
yeah,
picked that one up. Can you say that again?
can you say that again? You offer me like five. Like
Yeah.
you don't really have the time to do that. And
Yeah.
I think the people who do end up approaching like that, they're gonna burn themselves out because it's just not a genuine experience for the user, and then for the viewer, and then even for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, I can go another
Well,
hour if you want to stay on. I'm down.
oh, I gotta go to bed. It's past
It's
my
bad.
bedtime at this point. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Ernie. I'm happy to have been the first. I think the first. You haven't been on any other shows, right?
For
Any other?
cards,
Yeah, like Pokemon related stuff. I think
I'm a
maybe.
lurker, man. Like, sure,
You're in
we're
every
gonna ask
chat. You're in
stuff.
every Discord. You're
Yeah, I
you're
just
all
try to
over the
like
place.
enjoy the content, and
Yeah.
for me at this point, it's like I try to show as much support as I can to a lot of you guys because the community's tight.
Mhm.
again with my channel, my content, like I'll do it. I'll make content, but it's not. I enjoy being a member of the community much more than like being a figurehead or
Right.
being someone you should watch, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you're the first, maybe not the last, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from you, and I hope that everyone goes to the pin message above and subscribes to Earn Collect's YouTube channel because Ernie's awesome.
ebay.com slash what is it, the URL again? STR slash earn collects.
Yeah.
Buy my stuff. I haven't sold stuff in a bit. That's not true. TCG player, same thing.
Yeah.
Instagram,
Go check
same
out all the
thing.
stores. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it, man. And I know that we didn't talk much to the chat. I know Ernie was typing to them here and there. And but we appreciate you guys being here. I was fully engrossed into the conversation. It was a lot of fun sitting down with someone who has a lot. I feel like we have quite a bit in common with our history and content creation and the Japanese Pokemon market stuff. It was fun to sit down
Yeah,
and kind
man.
of hash things out. And hopefully people learn some stuff. It will be presented a little bit differently. So after this live is finished, it will go to members, but then I'll be editing certain sections into more palatable videos. So for people who didn't get to watch it live, I'll have a couple of different videos coming out, specifically maybe about vendor POV content, specifically about just the different topics we talked about in like maybe 20-minute chunks so that it's easier for people to consume and we can get more views on Ernie and our conversation because I think it was helpful and I hope that it helps a lot of people out there that want
I
to
hope I did
vend.
not spill too much sauce, as they say.
No, you're good.
But
Retro. Whenever I say by E, I've already spilled too much sauce for retro. So, but yeah, I appreciate it, Ernie. Thank you very much for coming on.
thank you. I appreciate it, man.
We'll see you later. Chat. Bye bye.